Welcome to the CELEBS.com studio, sponsored by Movie Maker. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yep. Keep the lights on. Well, Ira, 5 times now. This is your fifth film here?
It's my 5th film here, yeah.
Oh my God,
So
I didn't know.
Right.
Wow.
Wow.
No, I mean, I knew you were cool, but I didn't know you were that cool.
Yeah.
So do you just have this down to a science now, or is it completely a new experience with each new project?
It's a new experience because you're a new person at each point in your life, so I feel very different than other times I've come here. But it also doesn't feel like my first film, so it feels like I feel more confident.
You seem quite relaxed.
I'm pretty relaxed. I've been around, and I'm really happy with the film, so it feels like people will either like it, they'll have their, or won't, or they'll have their feelings about it, but I'm really pleased with the film and how it's turned out.
So for a first-time filmmaker, though, who is coming here to Sundance and experiencing this, do you have any advice for them? Like what have you learned from doing this so much?
That you can't control what happens, and don't worry if you don't get into a party, and don't worry if you don't get into a film, and just the things that you don't do are as interesting as the things that you do.
And altitude and alcohol, that combination, that's like a good lesson to learn, I think, early on in the game.
You can ask anybody around here. I've been saying, you know, just blame everything on the altitude up here.
Yeah.
Kind of,
I have already. Not on my face, it's just the altitude.
so puffy. I'm not usually this puffy. I swear. So you say you're proud of this film. In particular, what are you the most proud of?
Well, you know, the film is called "Keep the Lights On," and for a reason. It's a film that's about a certain kind of transparency in life. That these characters and the people in the film, there's a lot of issues about what is hidden and what is being kept secret and what people are not sharing with each other. We had set out to make a film in which we really kept the lights on the behavior of these characters and didn't try to judge what people were doing or to shy away from things that other people might think shouldn't be on film. So it's a very open film, and I feel like that's what we set out to do, and that's the film we made.
You feel the same way?
I do. I think that it's the story that I haven't seen before in a film, and very much I never really put together the title of the film with that aspect of it, but I think it's very apropos.
Now, this is a story that looks at love in all of its manifestation. It focuses on a love story between 2 men. And you were saying that even though this is a very personal story to you, you are excited for people to see this because of the conversations that you're hoping that it invokes. Have you found?
When I first read it, exactly. I have obviously not had this experience, specifically of these 2 men in this relationship, but it's still. I recognized it. It felt familiar. Yeah. And I think that's the lovely thing about it, that it's not about 2 men, but it is about a relationship and sort of the highs and lows and all that goes along with that. And that felt very exciting to me, to have it sort of be not about that specifically.
I love that too. You know, there's an underbelly to intimacy, and that's universal.
Yeah. I mean, I think, for better or worse, how people relate to each other is often very similar between couples, and these issues about how people entwine their lives and the ways in which that is both beautiful but also can be very destructive. And I think those forms of destruction, you know, whether you call it codependency or particularly around issues of alcohol and drug use, which are central in this film, it's a messy life that these characters live, but it's also one that I think a lot of people go through.
I also love how you show sort of, you know, the honeymoon period when you first meet, and then when you get into it, and just the sort of bullshit and annoyance of like being with somebody, and it doesn't matter if you're with a man or a woman or what, but it's just like, as you say, it's the same. It's like you have the same, you have that blissful period, and then you like have the time where you're like, okay, now we know each other and have to deal with that. Sort of when the excitement's gone, and the day-to-day of actually trying to make it work with another person is really hard.
Yeah, show me somebody who hasn't been through that downfall. You know?
I mean, I think significantly also it's a film about a certain community, and that's where I think Julianne really adds a great element to the film, because it's about these 2 men, that's the story, but it's also about the kind of world that they live in, which is New York City. It's very urban, it's very mixed in terms of gay and straight, in terms of foreigners, in terms of locals, in terms of men and women. You know, these are the kinds of worlds that I see, whether I'm from Memphis or in Los Angeles, I'm from Memphis, or San Francisco or New York. These are how people are living today, but somehow we don't see these mixed worlds in the way that we live them.
Absolutely. So have you heard these conversations? have you, in showing it to your friends or peers or audiences, what kind of conversations are you hearing come out of this?
I think for some people it can be kind of painful to watch the film because I think people recognize certain moments, certain really difficult moments that these characters go through that they connect to. And I think that's ultimately cathartic because that's why we go to movies, is to see some version of our own lives played out. So, but I think that it can be a very intimate film to watch, I would say.
Yeah, I call it cinema therapy, and I'm a big fan, but it's true, these kind of topics where you have to look at how we react to this stuff and how we want to numb out to it, but it still exists. A lot of us want to just forget that ever happened, so I think it's healthy.
Though I also have to say I set out, and again I think Julianne adds a lot to this, which is I set out to make a film that was about serious things but maintains its sense of humor. Because I hope as I get older as a filmmaker that I get lighter. You know, I think I started out wishing I was German somehow, and I'm not German. I'm from the suburbs of Memphis.
Own it.
I'm not, you know, and like, and so I think that there is a level of kind of lightness in the film. There's a joy. There's love. There's a lot of stuff about friendship in this film.
Yeah.
You know, that there's celebrations. There's birthdays. There's Christmases. There's film festivals. There's a big scene in a film festival. I think all this life is what we tried to pack in.
Right. We're not dark and dysfunctional all the time. Right. Is this the first time for you two working together?
Yes.
It is, though. I tried to cast Julianne, and she.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but I had to remind you of that.
Yeah,
well,
you know, when you don't cast someone, you got to move on. You move on. But in 40 Shades of Blue, which was the film that was also here at Sundance in 2005, there was a part I offered to Julianne because I've really loved the naturalness of her work. And,
I know.
Well, and then I couldn't do it because it involved travel and for a couple of other reasons. But then I was basically like sort of stalking Ira when I read this script because I knew the casting person and I know a good friend of his, Eric, and I was doing a play and I was like, I'm trying to learn how to be more proactive. I was like,
look where we are.
It was about a year ago and I was like, can you tell Ira to come see my play? And just sort of, you know, and so it was a mutual happy thing, and when we finally got to meet, it was very nice.
But you know, that's a little bit what the film is about, is those kind of decisions we make later in our lives. Not when we're young. It's like we at certain points, and I feel like that's what this film is about a character's. It's a love story, but it's also a coming of age story. Learning to take care of yourself in a way that doesn't mean ostracizing other people, doesn't mean turning away from other people, but it means that you have responsibility for yourself, you know, to keep the lights on, to look at what you're doing.
And compassion for that. We all, you know, these are tricky things we're all facing. But yeah, I think she was such a natural fit for this, and I wanted to just validate you on your choice here, and I'm happy that to hear that this was something that you sought out.
I really responded to for many reasons, but I had been a fan of Ira's previous films, and I moved to New York in 1990, and I had my 20s and my 30s there, and I felt like when I read it, I felt like, you know, I remember certain times in my life and people that were in my life, and it just felt exciting to me. I hold those years and those times and those people so dear, and it felt like a way to honor them and that time and in my own, you know, younger life. So that felt like something I would love to be a part of.
And do you find when you're telling, because this is a pretty personal story for you, I understand.
Yes.
It comes out of some of your own experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know how directly.
No, I mean, you know, the film came to me. I ended a 10-year relationship, and I think when the relationship was over, I was really aware that there was a real story there, that there had been a beginning and there had been an end, and that there was 10 years between, and what went on between these two people during those years. And so I set out to write something about that experience. And then it becomes something else. You cast a wonderful Danish actor to play the lead.
Who's so good and charming and lovely and perfect.
Perfect for this as well.
Who's shooting he's playing a vampire in a Neil Jordan movie. So he's on location right now. He's an amazing actor. It's an amazing group of people, but it becomes something else, which is this fictional world that you create when you make a movie. On the other hand, it's very humanly familiar to me and close to me, which I would say has always been true for me. I can't make a film if that's not true.
No. Now, how is that for you, Julianne, working with someone who does it add a succinctness when you're working with someone who they're the director, and then this is also a personal story for them? How does that change things for you on your part?
You know what? I've had different experiences with that. One where the person was too close, awkward, couldn't get out of his own way, telling you how his person, what happened on the day.
Right.
And that can feel tricky and forced and strange.
Yeah.
That was not my experience with Ira. And even though intellectually I knew that it came from his experience, I never felt that, except in the best way. Like, I remember, when there was a picture of a friend of yours, and he had like little insides to what was happening, but it was never, this is how this is supposed to be.
Well, every time you make a film, you're creating a new reality and you're shooting it. Like, I think of every film as a documentary, really, because you are documenting whatever's happening between these human beings in front of the camera on that day. So there is no past for the characters. There's no past. So we don't rehearse,
And it didn't feel like you were recreating anything. It was just...
My job as a director is to set up an event that happens between these two characters, or 3 characters, or 5 characters, or 20 characters, and how that plays out is kind of the magic of the film, really. It's like these small little moments that you can't recreate.
You were I was very encouraging of that, actually, because there are several of the scenes that I'm in are around a table with a bunch of other people, and those were, be real, like, have dinner. And we'll capture that. Enjoy each other, talk to each other. And at first, that's terrifying, but you did such a good job of casting it, like Ed and Justin. Like, I was worried, because that can get weird, and suddenly you're making shit up about the weather to talk about, and it's so dull. But there was just such a lovely group at the table, Marie and Ditzia, and then it was fun and easy, and I feel like I really learned something doing that, actually. That was the first time that I've ever done it where it was...
You're very good in the scenes,
I don't... Well, thank you. I'm glad you think so. But it was fun to be encouraged.
We had a really nice environment on the film, which was important, because there's a lot of sex in the film. Let's put it out there. There's a lot of...
Wait.
There is.
What?
There's a lot of sex.
Not that version I saw.
There's a lot of sexuality, there's a lot of openness, there's a lot of emotion, and there's actually a lot of nudity in the film. I mean, so there's a way in which we...
Not me this time.
Not her this time. But I think that means that we didn't know, but we created an environment in which people felt very free. And that made it kind of... and I think you feel that also in the film. It's not uptight, which I can be, so I was set up to make the goal.
Tor was really helpful in that too. The Great Dane. He's so... He's like... kind of this like big sexy puppy dog. Like, he's just so lovely and easy and comfortable with himself, and in that totally sexy and charming in the nicest way. And I think that, I mean, he's the one who has the brunt of that work to do, and I think that sets the tone of, like, if people should be feeling sort of, precious about it or what. And there was just, I don't know, maybe it's a European thing or something, but
I think that helps.
And you too, of
well,
course.
And I think also we did the first sex scene on day 2 of the shoot, and that was between Zach and Tor, and I think they both together took us somewhere we did not expect, which was joyous and lively and loud, and actually the whole crew then was really comfortable, because these two men just were not people who are uncomfortable with their bodies, which is huge. I mean, I wasn't going to do that. So.
Well, you did a beautiful job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you at the festival.